Now playing California Triathlon Soup.
Welcome to another edition of California Triathlon Soup. This is Tom Richmond, and today we have as our very special guest Clay Evans, who is the co-founder of SCAQ, as in Southern California Aquatics. He's also the head coach and director, and we're going to learn a lot more about Clay and SCAQ today on California Triathlon Soup. Welcome, Clay.
Well, thank you, Tom. Nice to be here.
So we have known each other. Normally with California Triathlon Soup, we try to do about 3 to 4 hours worth of research on each of the people that have appeared, and it was pretty easy with you because I've known you for years, and I've swam where you've corrected at least 10% of my flaws. And
I'm still looking at the other 90.
That's right. And so we know each other pretty well and have a great relationship. So we're really looking forward to about 30, 40 minutes of good fun. Why don't you talk about how you got into swimming for the listeners? Clay won a Olympic medal in 1976 swimming for the Canadian team.
Yes. Well, I was tossed into a pool and had lessons, and then sometime later, there was an advertisement in the local newspaper about a swim team at the YMCA, and that was where I got started, a little bit after 8 years old. And they said, you got to be able to swim 50 yards. So my mom and I marked off on the sidewalk how far 50 yards was, and I can do that. That's how I got started on a swim team. And it was just very low key novice team, and I could swim fast. I had certain, talents that I inherited from mom and dad that allowed me to swim fast. And from there, I continued on, and I got more serious as you go along as a little kid. A little kid should keep it fun and easy until you really start getting serious when you're like 14 or 15. Sometimes in these days that people are just a little too serious. And then from there, I made my first international cuts for a big swim meet when I was 15 and a national championship cuts when I was 16. And I just kept going. I never lost a race in high school. And I made the Canadian Olympic team for Munich. And I won 2 events and set Canadian records. And then I didn't do very well in Munich, and that was because I was a senior in high school going into UCLA. I was recruited to play water polo and swim at UCLA. And after 4 years at UCLA and NCAA championships and finalist and All-American for 4 years, I matured a lot better, and I swam again and was very concentrated and was able to get 6th place in the 100 butterfly in Montreal, and then I was on a Canadian relay that got 2nd place in the United States. So that's my swimming career, not counting masters as an adult.
And you said you inherited some athletic prowess from mom and dad. What were their backgrounds athletically?
They were both good athletes, very strong, but nothing really organized other than school sports. My dad played soccer and gymnastics, and my mom did a whole bunch of things, but nothing team-oriented. This was a different era in the Depression. My dad had to start working at a quite young age, and so they didn't have the advantage of 2 wonderful parents that I had and the opportunity to be on swim teams and or an organized sport. It takes a lot of parent involvement for a young kid to progress.
And you were, and you said your first Olympics was 72 in Munich, and when you think about 72 Olympics, Tell us how that was relative to the world events of terrorism and all that good stuff.
Well, the Canadian apartments that we stayed in were about 60 yards away from the Israelis, so it was quite close. We were woken up in the morning at the front door with the German military telling us to go out the back door and disappear, take stuff, because they don't know when you're coming back. And that was in the morning. And what's funny, not funny, nothing's funny about that, but what's interesting is that a couple of water polo players on the Canadian team jumped over the fence with these terrorists because it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and they were coming back from watching hockey, Canada versus Russia, the first time ever hockey match. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, they were hopping the fence and helping each other across this little fence. I remember the fence. It was just a little easy thing to hop over. And in the morning, things started happening a little bit shortly after that. So we went into town not knowing what was going to happen. All the Olympics, of course, was closed down. The swimming events were completed and done and finished. So it didn't have any effect on me having to swim. I'd already swam. I didn't do very good because it was the Olympics. I was a young kid just out of high school in the summer, and so starry-eyed. And if I had done a little bit better, I could have finaled in my 2 events that I swam and won the Canadian Olympic trials. But I just really bombed. I just fell. A young kid, immature, and it sure taught me a really good lesson for 4 years from then at Montreal.
When you showed up in Munich, what swimmers, I can guess, but what swimmers were you just like, wow, I can't believe I'm in the same Olympic village as this swimmer?
Well, by then I had already been in a few international meets and I knew everybody. You kind of get to know everybody when you're at that level. So it wasn't the swimmers as much as it was just everything. It was my first time in Europe, the Olympics, the television cameras. You're walking around. You did see famous athletes in all the other sports, and that was amazing. And it was overwhelming amount of information and happening. And like I said, I was 4 years later, I was much more able to focus and narrow my goals down and just blank out everything else. Because when you're in the Olympics, you know that every person that you've ever known is watching you, and as well as the whole world. It's amazing to walk into a swimming stadium and there's 20-some thousand people there, not counting all the people on TV. So it's very distracting. And when I made the finals in Montreal, it was interesting. The Canadians said, we're taking you out of the village. We want you in a hotel, and we don't want nobody around. We don't want anybody bothering you. We want you to concentrate. It was a very smart and intelligent move, that.
Yeah, so to swim in Montreal in '76, I mean, that's the hometown support. That must have added at least a tenth of a second or something like that, right? Or subtracted.
Yeah, probably. Once again, you just have to to take all of that out and really just concentrate. And sometimes people can concentrate too much, and that's an interesting theory. You can ask me later in this conversation about my advice to triathletes, because I've learned a lot having gone through all this process, and the nerves and the ability to put life into a focus and perspective, but not let it drown you, so to speak.
Well, when I was looking at the Olympic champions in the 4x100, it looks like, other than 1980, and we'll get to that, when the U.S. boycott and the Canadians boycotted the Olympics in Russia, looks like the U.S. are kind of piggy about taking the gold medal at the 4x100.
Yes, that's always been a very American dominant event. That's very true. We were lucky. We were second, not too far behind, and we also broke the existing world record. But there was another world record that was like a second and a half old.
Now let me ask you this question. So when I was looking up, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, tell me how this works. So when I was looking up the heat results for your race, I looked at the first heat, second heat, and I saw names of people who potentially swam in the heats but did not swim in the final. Is that true? Does that happen?
Yes, you're talking about Montreal.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you had all these people, countries had all these people, and back then you were allowed to have three swimmers per event, and then they cut that back to only two swimmers per event. But anyway, they allowed three, and they took the top 16 and they swam that night. The mornings were the prelims, and then evenings was the semifinals. They had 16, and out of that 16, they picked the top eight. And then those top eight swam the next evening for the final champion, gold medal.
So it's possible, in some cases that somebody might have, as an example, qualified their country in an event in a heat, but then that person didn't swim in the finals, correct?
Well, yeah, they only take the top eight. I don't know how many swimmers swam in my event or events, but there was most went home after the first round, the preliminaries, and then 16 people qualified for the finals. And then out of those 16, eight went home, and eight continued on to the next evening to swim for the podium. I happened to be sixth place going in to the next evening, the final, and I ended up sixth place.
Got it. Got it. In terms of then, Montreal's over, and do you continue training for 1980?
Well, I was in grad school and I was coaching swimming and playing around and swimming a little bit, a couple workouts a week, and I decided to go ahead and enter a national championship that also was the selection swim meet for the Pan American Games, which is the Olympics of the Western Hemisphere, North and South America, and it's always held the year before. And without any real seriousness, just a frolic, not very much hard work, I ended up getting third place and getting on the podium. And I said, whoa, maybe I should get serious again. So I took a year out of grad school. I was in architecture grad school and went back up to Canada, Vancouver, and trained seriously for 1 year. However, when it came time to come to the Olympics, the Canada joined the United States in boycotting the Moscow Games.
Right, right. And then so obviously you didn't participate. Well, so post grad school, post all those things, at some point you decided you wanted to start coaching, and eventually that led to you becoming a co-founder of Southern California Aquatics. And I'll toot your horn for you. I think last time I checked, there were 1,000 swimmers who were part of that program. And that's one of the largest, if not the largest, master swim program in the country, correct?
Yes, it's all probably maybe the largest swim team in the United States. Kids also. What happened was I never wanted to be a swim coach. What happened was that I was in grad school, and to get myself through grad school, I was coaching swimming in Santa Monica, and it was a kids swim team, and we had more and more of these adults swimming with us. This is the late 70s. And next thing, a few of the adults said, hey, let's start a adult only. And so we did 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday evening, and a Saturday morning. And two of those were the founders of Triathlon magazine, Harold Johnson and Penny Little. And so that's how we got started by triathletes. It was their idea. And it started and very casual. And it was a fun group, and I came back and this is after I went for the 80 Olympics, taking a year off of grad school. And I came back and I was coaching it and going to grad school. And the program kept growing, the interest kept growing. I got more pool space, took out a permit, and then we got a second pool and a third pool. And I did a lot of consulting work, and I was a practicing architect for 5 years. I did a lot of consulting work overseas. And next thing you know, I just can't do both. And in architecture, I was starting at the bottom and swimming with a silver medal on the Canadian relay and being an Olympian. I was starting at the top and swimming.
Well, Clay, and I think
very large and very huge program.
I've said this before. That is a Canadian silver, and I guess with the exchange rate, is that just a bronze in the U.S.?
We've lost him.
Clay, hello, Clay.
Yes, we lost you for a while.
We'll certainly edit that out at 15 and change, which is fine. So the last thing I heard was, or that we heard was, I heard Canadian silver medal, and so I made the comment that is that Canadian silver medal with the exchange rate, is that a U.S. bronze medal?
Very funny, Tom. Very funny. Actually, gold is more expensive up in Canada.
Sorry. Yeah, exactly. No, sorry. Yeah, no worries. So let's get into swimming. So I'm going to say this. There's a lot of when we started California Triathlon, I appreciate swimming with swim coaches, biking with bike coaches, and running with runners. Swim with swimmers, bike with bikers, run with runners. So that's what we appreciate. Tell us, in terms of, if you were to have a beginner triathlete or somebody who's just been in it a year or two, what are some of the most important things, top two or three things that they can do in terms of becoming a faster swimmer? Everybody wants to become faster. Nobody wants to go slower.
That's true. Everybody wants to progress ahead, but unfortunately, a vast majority of them want you to coach them immediately into the fast lane. And why can't you do that, as opposed to all the hard work? It's amazing the process that you have to go through. I'm sorry, there's no shortcuts. I mean, we can do our best coaching you and telling you what to do, and there's not any one clear sign. Maybe you can ask me that later. One clear path, or there's not one completely clear for everybody style of technique. It varies upon the individual. So, but basically, it's called just hard work. I'm sorry, there's no shortcuts. You've heard one organization say effortless swimming. Well, that's designed to rope people in. I mean, if it's effortless, you mean Michael Phelps could have gone faster in the Olympics? There's no such thing. You want to go to your best that you can. So a good swimming coach, and what's amazing about swim coaches is you see all these swimming coaches everywhere popping up, and they've never swam in a swim meet. I don't think in any other sport you would have something like this. It's dumbfounding to me. You have these people that have got programs, and you can get certificates and etc. I won't mention any names, by just going and paying a couple $1,000, and you get a notebook, and here, study this over the weekend. And I'm still looking at myself 40 years of coaching, and I'm still learning things, and I'm going, oh, let's try that. And I don't know how somebody can do it without having swam in a swim meet.
So you're referring to like one of the brands out there is Total Immersion.
There you go. And that and a lot of other brands. I mean, you use a lot of keywords, you lose a lot of fluff, a lot of papers. And the first thing they want to do is stay away from a legitimate swimming coach. I'm a crusty old swimming coach. I'm going to tell you exactly where you're going to go. And I'll probably tell you how far you can go and how much time do you have to do that in. And let's not fool around. And that's what a real coach is going to tell you. They're not going to give you a bunch of stuff and keep you away from hard work. So you just keep on buying videos and whatever the other online formulas that you can do and chalk up the money. I want to get you where you can go the quickest, the soonest, and the fastest. And you know what? It's going to take some participation and effort on your part. And how much time do you have? And by the way, it sounds kind of tough, but you got to make it fun. It shouldn't be too serious. So I think when anybody's picking a swim program, they got to look at who's the coach? Where have they been? Have they been in a swim meet? And one of the things that you just said was biking with the bikers, running with the runners, and swimming with the swimmers. Our program is probably 20%, 30% triathletes. So you're in there. There are 20% that have a swimming background that swam on a team. Probably 10% swam on colleges. We do have probably 5 or 6 Olympians in our program. So you're swimming not in the same lane, but you're swimming in the same workout. And how do you get to where you want to go? Well, you do that by swimming in a program. Now, when you come to one of my workouts, I don't stop and do drills and all this technique. I want to see working hard. And what does it look like? Where does your stroke deteriorate as you're working hard? Not choreographed for my good benefits to look at you, but what happens when you're doing 1,000? And what does it look like? How is your stroke decaying, your technique decaying as you fatigue? And how do you hold on to the technique? And how do you pace yourself correctly? Those are all the little things that any coach is going to teach a swimmer.
Yeah, we are definitely we see a lot of different swim programs out there that are that way, where you look at the credential and of the swim coach, and you're right. They've never swam. They've never been in a meet. We agree. Total agreement. So in terms of, I've been on deck, you've been on deck before, and I've been in the water. Next thing you know, I'm getting a video, which, by the way, is the meanest thing you can do, is to take video of somebody swimming. Everybody's cringing. Everybody cringes. And the next thing you know, it's on my mobile phone. Hey, this is what I saw this morning. Do you think that if people, can see themselves, can get more visualization of what they're doing, is that a huge tool that you use with your athletes?
The cell phone, the modern cell phone with a camera, is absolutely unbelievable coaching aid, because you can do a 10-second video and you can send it right then, right there. You don't have to do a tripod. You don't have to do underwater camera. You don't have to do all the stuff that we used to have to do. You can do it right there instantaneously. And I average 5 videos a workout. So I got my phone full of people's names, cell phones, boom, I just sent it right away. And it is so easy. You can talk on the phone and say, get your elbow up, do this, reach over the barrel, do this, do that. And 10 seconds later, they've got so much. It's always good to tell them, what you meant in the video, because they get home and then the person that doesn't have a swimming background gets confused. So you got to kind of explain and see where they might be confused and correct it right then and there, and let's see what's happening. And then, like I said, you got to do it under duress of effort. You're going to go out there and swim a triathlon. So if you're doing an Olympic distance, 1,500 meters, what does it look like on number 12, 13, 14, 15? Not what it looks like in the first and second 100 meters.
You've said that the most important, I've heard you say this, and for triathletes, sometimes that can be really hard because we both run and bike. You said that one of the most important things that somebody can work on is ankle flexibility. How important is ankle flexibility, and how does somebody work on ankle flexibility?
Well, it's pretty hard to work on ankle flexibility. But thank God in most triathletes, you don't need it. Michael Phelps' single greatest natural talent that his mom and dad gave him was ankle flexibility. One of many things, by the way. Size 15 feet, I think he has. He's 6'4" or something like that. Shoulder flexibility. All those other things add up. But in my opinion, as a coach, what I see adults do is they just don't have ankle flexibility. As a matter of fact, I've lost mine over the years, and I don't kick anywhere near. It's the most debilitating thing to my current swimming. So I wear fins every single workout. So fins are a good aid to ankle flexibility. They're a good aid to the position you'll be in the water, especially if you're wearing a wetsuit. Now, how much you wear the fins depends upon when your triathlon is, whether you should have a pull buoy on and practice with a pull buoy, without a pull buoy, with fins. Combination of all the three is something I want to talk to each individual. I look at their technique, their body composition, and when is their event, and how serious are they. And then that'll determine, hey, gee, you're going to have a triathlon in September. Well, we have some time. Let's work on the technique. I can teach technique a lot faster when they're wearing fins and they're up on top of the water, like they are with the wetsuit. It's a lot easier than if they're, swimming uphill, sinking.
So if I want to get better, how many times a week do I have to swim, and is that calculated into yards as well?
Well, the answer to that is as much time as you have. I swam only the 100 butterfly in Montreal. I swam other events in Munich. I didn't even try. Besides, they knocked out the 200 IM, which was my second or maybe my best event. They knocked it out of the Olympics. They only had the 400 IM. And so I only had 100 butterfly. And that thing was over for me in 55.5 seconds. Now, if I had gone 54.7, I would have got the gold medal. But no, sorry, 55.5. Now, to do 55.5, I worked out 2 mornings a week, 2 hours, 6 days a week each morning. And then I'd come back for another 5 workouts at 2 hours and do a little bit of stretching and a little bit of weights as well. That is an enormous amount of work. And that's how much work an elite professional triathlete would probably do in swimming, as well as all the other sports, because guess what? They're professional and they're spending the whole time. But for the working adult, whatever you can do, whatever the time you have. And number one thing in all this seriousness that we're talking about, my opinion as a coach, have fun doing it. And then work hard. Have fun first and then work hard. Enjoy it. Don't be so strung up and gripping the handlebars so tight that you can't perform in swimming. And that happens. So how much time do you have? What makes it fun for you, and how much time you have?
Got it. Yeah. I'll have to, based on pool availability or life or off season or things like that, maybe take a month off of swimming and come back. And those first few swims back in the water are just awful. I don't have any feel. The times are brutal. I think it takes a couple weeks. I tell people, I'm like, I know you want to get to your race. Your race is coming in a couple months. It's time to start getting back in the water and what I call take your beating. And then after 2-3 weeks, then it starts getting a little bit better. And in terms of, for triathletes, in terms of frequency, I think you can sort of maintain your fitness at maybe 2 times a week. You can do pretty well with 3, and you can get faster with 4. Because again, typically you're running 3 times a week and biking 3 times a week too, if you're training hard for an event. So you just, you'd love to be in the pool that much, but you've got other things you've got to do.
Absolutely. I mean, you're also holding down a job and a family. So how much time do you have? I mean, let's just be serious. Once a week is miserable. I don't, that's just going to be painful all the time. You're going to be thrown off. You're going to have such a large gap. 2 is so much better, but 3 would be, if you're really, really pressed, I think 3 is so much better than only 2. And swimming is nowhere near 1/3 of the triathlons, as we all know. So, but it's out of proportion because it's first, and it's a strange event, and you're not really getting, when you're walking around in life and you're biking and you're running, you're all supplementing the biking and running. But in swimming, it's a completely different ball game. You're all upper body strength. So the time you can spend and that technique and the feel for the water is so different and so strange. So my advice always is you probably need to swim more than 1/3 of the time of your training to get where you want to go. Even though when you get to the triathlon, the triathlon is proportionally so much less.
Well, you had mentioned fun, and a lot of the swimming is obviously early morning, late evening, after work, and it better be fun in order to be able to jump in a pool at 5:30 or 6 in the morning. I can tell you that.
Well, that's why SCAQ is successful, Southern California Aquatics, is that you got to try and make it fun. It's a group of people that are coming. It's miserable to be in the water. You're trying to train. So what do? You make it fun. And that's one of the reasons we are hugely successful, is that you're putting a bunch of people together and they're having a swim. They're swimming against each other. And we don't have any single anymore.
So since we have you, and I assume you follow elite swimming, let's talk about some of the folks that are breaking records over the last couple of years. The breaking down a Katie Ledecky, breaking down, or just some men's records broken in the.
Caleb Dressel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Caleb, who just set the record in the 50-yard freestyle at NC2A Championships at 17.63. He won over the last record by 4.3%. It's the greatest drop in a record. I don't know how far it goes back, but he demolished an elite field. I mean, he made them look. It was like he was at a high school swim meet, and they were all going 18 seconds. I mean, it was so revolutionarily fast. And Katie Ledecky is the same thing. I mean, she's scoring. She's getting in the finals of men's events. She would have won every event in my Olympics. I think I could have beat her in the 100 butterfly, but last Olympics, there was one woman that beat my best time. I wasn't happy about it.
And they, like if you look at some of the, if you were to look at some of these strokes, there's not one right stroke. Even at that level, there's not one stroke. They all have different types of strokes. Explain a couple different, athletes and the different strokes they use.
Yeah, that's one of the things that it takes experience. And I can tell you, in the last week, I've even saw something. I go, oh my goodness, that's an interesting way to look at that stroke. It just changes, it evolves. There's a communication on the professional level of coaches and the number of swimmers you see. And, when you hear the one thing that the fake swim coaching will do is they'll give you, key words that I just don't like and I don't agree with. Balance. I just can't stand it. You're swimming with your core. I mean, there's so many different variables and factors when I look at somebody. I mean, if you look at the strokes in the Olympics and you look at each lane is different from the other lanes. So there isn't absolutely one stroke, but when you come in as an individual, I like to look at the person and think, gee, what are we going to do? And it's not 100%. There'll be a few things I can change right off the automatic, and I'm absolutely sure. And then it's like, gee, Tom, wow, I'm a little confused with this. Let's try this way and see if it works. Watch the clock, know your times, and tell me, is it working for you? There are just some things. And if you look at, like I said, the strokes, and then you look at Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps in the freestyle. He's different on the right side than he is on the left side. So obviously something's up, and that's his style. I wouldn't change it. I would maybe, inch one way in direction here or there if I was his coach, maybe do this or do that. But obviously that's him. Katie Ledecky the same way. She's slightly, she's slightly different on both sides.
Do you so you won't mess with a good thing, right? If it's working, why mess with it, right?
No, not at all. You look at it. For my third coach, my third Olympics, trying for the 1980 Olympics, I went up to Canada and I picked a coach that actually he made 3 Olympic teams. His third was my first, and we'd become good friends. So I went and swam for him. Of course, we're no longer friends. He was kicking my butt. But it was amazing. It was absolutely, he would take videos with the old video cameras at the time. And we would look at them together, and we'd just go over and we'd find things. I couldn't believe it. I'd already swam in 2 Olympics, and we'd find things and he'd go, let's try this, let's try that, because he had such a good eye for seeing so many things. And I was older at the time. I was 26. I was mature. I was able to talk and do this feedback with him, and we would try different things out. So, at any time, any swimmer could improve. A fast ship can always be made faster. You're not just stuck. And sometimes coaches, they look at these Olympians and they're just, well, that's absolutely, they got the gold medal, that's absolutely perfect. Well, I don't know about that. And what they do is not necessarily perfect to the other people. And like I said, you just look at the Olympics, one lane next to the other lane versus the other lane. It just depends upon what you have, and there's a little bit of experimenting. And you experiment and you get the results by watching that clock. That's one big thing triathletes tend not to do, is to watch their time.
Relative to injury, what are some of the more? I always say with runners, it's like runners are always, not always, but runners. I look forward to seeing you on the bike because runners are always future cyclists or future swimmers because the wear and tear on the legs is a lot. Injury prevention from swimming. What are the injuries you see the most? Is that rotator? Is that shoulder?
The shoulder problem is the only thing other than running into somebody or running into the lane line or the wall or an earache. The only problem you get in swimming, and I'm talking about really, it's just so rare anything else. You'll get cramps when you haven't been swimming for a while. And the reason why, by the way, new swimmers get cramps or people that are out of shape is because they're pointing their toe, and they never do that anywhere else unless you're on the ballet team. So the one thing that you can hurt from swimming is your shoulders. Yes, you're absolutely right. If you do a lot of breaststroke, you can, groin muscles, groin pulls and knees are a possibility, but we don't do that much of that in triathlons. But that shoulder, and shoulders are, if your shoulder is bad, it's because of technique. You're doing something wrong. If you do the technique correctly, you won't have a shoulder problem. Most likely, 95%. Okay. Whenever I see somebody, I can tell shoulder problems that, when I first see them do the first 10 strokes, because they're leaning on their shoulder and they're putting pressure on it unduly. And the interesting thing is shoulder problems are almost always caused by distance swimming, not sprints, which is, you'd think it'd be the other way around because they lean on the shoulder out in front of them, and that causes the problems. So the only thing really is shoulder problems other than incidental accidents.
Tailoring this to a triathlete, there's two things. One is flip turns, which we should get to, but the second one is related to doing all 4 strokes. And when I first started swimming, I just did 1 stroke, and I didn't really want to do back. I could do back if I wanted to. I could do breast if I wanted to. I've never done, me doing fly. It looks like a washing machine. Drowning myself in a washing machine. So I, save that. I either do backstroke or breast for that. But do you encourage your swimmers? Do you encourage triathletes to do IM? And if so, how often should they incorporate it in either a set or during a week of workout?
Yeah, getting a triathlete to do the other strokes is pretty tough. They really don't like it. We've even changed in our SCAQ schedule other strokes IM, which means individual medley, all 4 strokes, to cross training. It's a nice buzzword that people will take, and that's exactly what it is. Other strokes is some cross training. It gives you not only the flexibility, but it teaches you to feel the water in a different angle. You're trying something different. Your swimming IQ goes up. Your freestyle goes up. And any Olympic coach would know to train a strictly freestyler to do the other strokes probably 15, 20% of the time. And that's what I would advise a triathlete. Just do it. And you will, just having that difference, feel for the water. It'd be like, I tell people all the time, it'd be like learning French helps your English. You're just getting an awareness of the water, an awareness of body control, motion control, friction, etc., that just expands what you know about the freestyle, which is called the forward crawl, by the way. There's no freestyle event. It's forward crawl.
So if I say freestyle from now, you will a real swimmer like yourself kind of cringe, or will you let me?
No, it's pretty common in the United States, but the United States is the only country that calls it freestyle.
So
Everybody
freestyle
else
is
in the
any
world calls
style.
it forward crawl. Is any style you want to do, and people pick the forward
So if you're
crawl
looking at
during the freestyle event. The rules are you can't bounce off the bottom, you can't grab the lane lines, you can't wear fins, and you got to go from one end to the other. That's the only rules in the forward. Well, I don't know the rest. Maybe there's something else. You can't have a floating
so
suit.
if you're swimming
I don't know, there's
2000
other things.
and you're saying incorporate
But
IM, that's at 15-20%. That's 300-400 yards. You could certainly incorporate a lot of that on the warm ups and also the cool downs, right?
or not only that, but how about during the hard work? What's wrong with doing a little bit of hard stuff? And when you say a 2000, let me just look at that. People get in. A lot of people get in. A lot of lap swimmers, a lot of triathletes get in and do a straight mile. That's not the way you should train. Swimming was revolutionized by the pace clock done by Doc Councilman out of University of Indiana, very famous coach, theoretician, and put a pace clock up on the wall, and it revolutionized swimming. And then it's seeped into other sports, interval training. I mean, a life cycle is interval training, going hard sometimes, soft sometimes, taking a rest sometimes, and always looking at the clock. I can't mention enough to triathletes, look at the clock, know what pace you're going. The most important thing other than being in the water is to watch the clock. And it's so confusing, it's difficult at first, but your swimming IQ shoots up by your awareness of what you're doing and what it is to propulse yourself through this huge medium of water, which is 900 times the friction of air.
I do appreciate swimming on a clock, and I think you're absolutely right. The first couple of triathlons I went out and did, hey, if it's 1,600 yards, I'll swim 4 weeks from the race. I'll swim 400 this week, 800 the following week, 1,200 the 2 weeks before, 1,600. I'm good. I did that for a good year before getting involved with a master's program, and to not great effect. So we agree. Now, two other things which are picky to before we wrap up, picky to triathletes and master swim. We race on the weekends, and Monday comes around, and you guys got to take it. You guys got to take it easy on us on Monday mornings. That's my and you can't. And I don't think you can pick on us about not doing flip turns. That we don't see that. But to that point, I have talked to a lot of swim coaches. They say, look, doing flip turns actually helps you with breath control and things like that. Are you a fan of triathletes practicing their flip turns?
If it's fun. It is harder to learn it. You're a menace and a danger to your lane for a long time. But after a couple months, you're going to say to yourself, my God, it's so much easier and faster than what I used to do. But that's up to you to grind it out for a couple months and be a danger to everybody else.
Well, I think that was everything I wanted to cover today. I'm being a SCAQ member, I guess, honorary member for a few years. I would certainly encourage any of our listeners to check out, SCAQ, Southern California Aquatics, or Master's Program. And yes, I can tell you, if Clay is on deck, I will be there. And more than likely, if Clay is not on deck, I won't be there, because having somebody there to kind of pick on you, joke with you, it just starts my day well. So I like to get the swimming done in the morning, feeling of accomplishment, get home, get some breakfast. That's one last thing before I let you go. why am I always so hungry? If I go out and swim an hour, I want to eat everything in my refrigerator, but if I run an hour, not so much. Why are we always so hungry after swimming? What's that about?
Well, that's an individual thing. I tell you, when I swim hard, it just shuts off my appetite. So I don't know what to tell you. It's an individual thing. It's only probably, when I ask around other people, it's only probably 25% that have what I have. And that is, I swim hard. I'm not hungry. I'm not hungry. When I used to train at the elite level, I used to have a bag of food on my passenger car seat, and I'd have to force myself.
So if I'm hungry, then I'm probably just not.
I wish I had that problem
now. Well, Clay Evans, Canadian Olympic silver medalist, the co-founder, director, head coach of Southern California Aquatics. Thank you so much for being a guest of California Triathlon Soup. And as a guest, you'll receive a California Triathlon Soup, the 23-ounce coffee mug. And with 23 ounces, that'll keep you up in the morning. So thank you so much.